So, that was way better than I was expecting. Honk For Jesus is a new movie out this weekend. It stars Sterling K. Brown and Regina Hall and was actually produced by Daniel Kaluuya and Jordan Peele. It's about a disgraced pastor accused of sexual misconduct and follows along as he and his wife attempt to reopen their mega church in time for Easter. Right off the bat, bit of a warning here: if you are super religious or enjoy religion, don't watch this movie. I would love it if a lot of the people who are into religion did watch this sort of film because it's attempting to explore a lot, but I feel like that's just going to create a lot of anger because this movie is not exactly painting religion in the best light. Now, that being said, if you can get past the initial subject matter of this film, there is something really special happening with a movie like this. In the initial trailers for this movie, it was definitely promoted as more of like a jokey comedy, kind of silly sort of mockumentary film, but about 20 minutes into this movie, it becomes incredibly evident that they are trying to tell a much more personal story throughout this movie. And one of the things that's very interesting about the way they tell this story is that there are actually 3 separate films going on during this movie. One of them is following the pastor who's attempting to sort of reinvent himself. He's got this giant mega church and he wants to try to reclaim some of his past glory. The other one is following his wife, who's really struggling with the pressure religion is putting on her to stay with her husband. While she's also not entirely sure how happy she is in that marriage, she's also having trouble getting past the fact that she enjoyed the sort of celebrity status that being the wife of the man who owns a gigantic megachurch brings with it. The third story in this film is the documentary that they're making. There's a fictional documentary going on being made about the attempt to reopen this megachurch, and the film sort of plays around with the aspect ratio, because when you're in the classic 16:9, that's when the documentary cameras are off. That's when the characters are at their most raw and their most authentic. And when the aspect ratio changes to more of a 4:3, that's when the cameras are rolling and everybody sort of has to put on fake smiles and pretend that things are a lot better than they actually are. Now, I went to see this movie based purely on the fact that Regina Hall and Sterling K. Brown are phenomenal actors, and I'm a huge fan of Daniel Kaluuya and Jordan Peele. So any project with those 4 somehow all involved at the same time was an instant yes for me. But I will say the trailers for this movie definitely undersell how special it really is. The movie's attempting to tackle a lot of different subjects, but the most interesting is the sort of pressure that just surrounds the world of religion. You've got this pastor who's accused of sexual misconduct and at the same time got so used to this sort of celebrity status that his megachurch brought, and you start to see him and his wife sort of question just how much of their interest is in the fact that they're actually extremely religious and believe what they're saying, and how much of it is the fact that he wants to be able to afford a bigger mansion or another luxury sports car, or his wife wants to be able to buy more incredibly overpriced hats that she could wear at the services. Because you start to see that aspect of the greed and the selfishness sort of sneak through. And we see this a lot in the real world. These multi-million-dollar mega churches, pastors with net worths in the 100 millions for no reason. They've got incredibly luxurious homes and sports cars and everything you could ever need. And you start to question, while their motivations may have initially been pure, just trying to help people through tough times, once the money is involved, once the fame is involved, there's definitely some debate over just how genuine these people really are. The acting performances in this film are incredible. From what's relatively a pretty small cast, Regina Hall and Sterling K. Brown in this movie are absolutely phenomenal. Regina Hall, I feel like anytime I see her in a film, I am always amazed by how talented she is, and I find myself asking, how is she not in more stuff? It just seems like she puts so much into the characters that she plays in her movies that it is worth the price of admission alone. Sterling K. Brown also does an incredible job. He is so good in this movie that I almost thought he was actually a real pastor, because all of the mannerisms, all of the way he is speaking and presenting himself and doing these speeches, it is spot on for how they are actually done. He is this incredibly conflicted character, on one hand stuck between the fact that he has done these incredibly horrible things that do happen in the real world, a lot of times among the backdrop of religion. I don't want to give too much away, but just following this character throughout the movie is so fascinating. It's one of those things where it's like the movie starts out as a comedy, but beneath the surface there's a lot more going on. And I think that's also why the mockumentary aspect of this film works so well, because when the cameras are rolling and when the cameras are off, we're seeing two different movies. And so after having seen this film, I'm sort of surprised that it hasn't gotten more buzz. This is one of the more interesting films I've seen this year. It's one of the more interestingly made movies that I've seen this year because of how they're choosing to tell multiple different stories at the same time. And I'm a fan of the mockumentary style, but it inherently brings with it like it's going to be sort of comedy and sort of silly. The fact that they're cutting between that style and a much more dramatic and serious movie is part of why this film works so well. If you're someone that likes to think about movies either as they're happening or after they've happened or both, you are probably going to love this film. If you do not enjoy those things, I don't know if this is one that you're really going to like very much, because there is so much happening beneath the surface of this movie that you really have to try to digest everything you're seeing. And it really rewards people who are paying attention and who want to think about this film and talk about this film after they've seen it. Honk For Jesus is one of those gems of 2022. I sincerely hope more people go see this film. I hope it gets more promotion. The acting performances are incredible. The story is fantastic. And this is one that you do not want to miss.